Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And today, our guest is Gregory, and I'm really excited to be talking to Gregory because I think I saw you in the first class when you first came in, and it's cool to see that you've moved on in the journey in your journey of aviation. That being said, let's just get straight into it. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and yeah.
So my name is Gregory Allen Cook. I'm here at Thrust. My background is I majored in theater with a minor in psychology, and I just decided I wanted to make a pivot in my life, and I researched aviation a little bit. My uncle's brother, who I don't know super well, retired from United and flew international, so I consulted with him very briefly at like a family thing, and I researched it for about a year and a half before I pulled the trigger.
Awesome.
And everything that I kept discovering about it was intriguing, but the initial hook was really just, man, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
To feel like landing a plane.
Yeah.
And to learn how to do that. And I don't know, maybe our viewers, I just kind of always assumed that you had to be in like the military or something like that. That's right. Where these pilots came from. But I did a little bit of research on the internet and found out that there's a whole civilian route where you can do this. And it kind of breaks up into two different fields. There's one where you can go and get a bachelor's degree in aviation and do it, like Embry-Riddle, different universities. Well, I already had a degree, so that didn't really apply to me. I didn't necessarily want to put in the time and the money to get a whole nother degree.
Right.
I already have a degree, and from what I researched, as long as you had a degree, it doesn't really matter what the degree is in. So the accelerated programs were really interesting to me.
Okay.
And I literally researched every single program in the entire country, and this is where I'm at.
Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know that, yeah.
Because I thought this was the best place to train. I thought it was sort of on the up and up and maybe hadn't gotten too big yet, but was trending in that direction. Like, it really attracted to me that there were only a couple campuses that you could train in.
Right.
And you guys were moving in the right direction and probably going to expand eventually.
Right.
But it still kind of had like a hometown feel to it. And then coming here and having interactions with people like Irma, who, for the audience, Irma is kind of like Thrust mother of the century. Yeah. If you're having any problems or any extra help that you need, tutors or anything like that, oh, she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady that'll kind of help you out. She's the student liaison, kind of between the program and the students. And so I liked that it was still small.
Yeah.
And it wasn't maybe so big that it was a pilot factory.
Right, you're not going to fall between the cracks.
Exactly. Or you were just a number on the wall or something like that.
Well, I'm sure we're glad to have you then on that note, because I remember when you came in, I think I saw you on ZTA Day. When did you start?
Most likely. I started a little over a year ago.
Okay. That's about, yeah, I've been here for just a little over a year now.
Okay.
So I think I remember. But that being said, it's cool to know that you did so much extensive research before you chose. So I'll have more questions about that too. But I want to ask you one more thing to get to know you. If we zoom out a little bit, and if there's one thing that you want people to know about you to kind of understand you, what would be that thing? If someone knows this one thing about you, you feel like they kind of get you.
That's a really good question.
Kind of a hard question.
There's so many things. I'm a pretty layered individual.
Yeah.
Complicated, if you will.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about it a little bit before this. How you process information, how you learn. I'm perfectly capable of living in left brain world and doing math, and I actually happen to be very good at math. In high school, in college. Funny story, in college I used to find math not really that interesting.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily go to all the classes, but what I would do is I would go to 2 classes before each one of the tests just to figure out what we were being tested on. And then the rest of the classes I wouldn't go to, just so I could show up and do the test. So I say that to say this is I'm perfectly capable of using my left brain,
right?
But I definitely, anybody who knows me, live in my right brain, in the way that I process things, in the way that I think about things, in the way that I maybe need to look around things to get to it, and things aren't necessarily always linear and logical. I like kind of need to see the big picture, and then I'll grab some stuff, and it's just like I'm grabbing and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And then I see the big picture, and then eventually there's just like light bulbs and leaps and light bulbs. And it doesn't happen fast, but eventually it will happen.
Yeah, I relate to that. I can relate to that a lot.
But kind of the opposite of linear sometimes.
I understand.
I'm thinking around a situation because, I majored in theater. I did a tremendous amount of acting, directing, writing, and that's just sort of the way that you think in the creative world.
Right.
There necessarily isn't always a wrong answer. Sometimes it's just how do you see this and from what vantage point, and what do we want to highlight? What are we trying to say? What's the message of the play?
Right.
So I would say I definitely kind of live in that world versus A, B, C, D. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good answer. I think that's a sort. I maybe would give a similar answer to that question.
Yeah.
Because I like to think around things. That's a good way to put it. I might use that in the future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you were doing before this? Did you have any sort of work that you might have done before you got into aviation that kind of played more into that side of your brain?
Oh, I mean theater. I was truly passionate about doing a lot of theater and had the time of my life when I was in college pursuing that. Didn't necessarily make any money.
Right.
Not necessarily easy to make money when you get outside of that world. But yeah, I mean, we put on plays all the time. I've probably done 50 plays.
Yeah.
So it's all just collaborating with people, and they bring their creative input on it, and then you're bringing your creative input, and hey, we got a month and we're putting up the show in a month, and you need to be off book in a week, and let's kind of get to work and find out what we all commonly believe is like the theme of this play, like what is the message, and
I like that.
kind of agree on a couple different themes, and then just put it out there and see how people receive it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna visit back to this a little bit because I'm gonna want to know how it kind of plays into what you're doing here, training as a pilot. But before then, let me ask, where are you at in your pilot journey now?
Oh, so I'm in CFI, which is a certified flight instructor.
Okay.
So I have the private pilot cert, the instrument rating, the commercial cert.
Okay.
And now you're kind of transitioning into, hey, you've taken the time, learned all this information. Now we're going to switch you from the left seat to the right seat and start training you as an instructor to potentially teach people down the road.
Right.
Hopefully here.
Yeah.
We'll see. And yeah, you're just switching seats. There's a little bit more going on. You have some responsibility and you have to kind of condense things in the airplane. But I'm working on my certified flight instructor rating here.
Okay, sweet. Now, I hear that's a bit of a challenge, like you said, switching seats, but it's fun.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
I really like it, man.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty generous person.
Yeah.
I like to share what I know, and hey, if there's somebody that I'm passing, I'm starting to tutor people, which is cool. So that's kind of giving back to like the aviation community, and if there's something that someone's struggling with, I really like trying to get them to connect the dots in different ways and make it as easy as possible, which is kind of crazy because sometimes depending on the level, like let's say I'm tutoring a guy who's trying to get his private pilot certificate right now.
Yes.
And some of this terminology I need to be accurate with, but I don't necessarily need to speak. It doesn't have to be PHAC specific.
Right.
Sometimes I need to take some information and then how do I boil this down and explain it to somebody in the most condensed format in maybe one sentence where it makes sense.
Right, like they
And
got to be able to comprehend it more than it's not really checking boxes when you're a private. They need to grasp an idea, right? Is that sort of kind of like where you're getting at when not PHAT specific, but more so?
there's a lot of language and
Mm,
terminology with aviation that can be very daunting at the
mm,
beginning.
mm,
Where somebody's trying to explain something to you and they're talking about adverse yaw and this and that and this and that. And you're
yeah,
like, man, that guy said 30 words in this sentence and 25 of them, I don't really know what that means.
right.
So just kind of try to break it down in the most simplistic way, like you would be explaining it to a friend
Hmm.
talking about aviation and saying, what is adverse yaw?
Right.
I just gave a presentation over adverse yaw
Yeah.
and
What is adverse, y'all? While we're at it.
up at the academy. So adverse yaw is when you're rolling left
Uh-huh.
in the plane.
Yeah.
What I told in the presentation is that I said it's a $10 word, but we're going to try to give it a $4 meaning.
Yeah.
Just keep it simple, stupid, baby.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid. So when you're rolling to the left or you're rolling to the right, like in a turn,
Hmm.
the nose wants to kick outside the turn.
Mm,
How you alleviate this is when you're turning to the left, for example, just
mm,
put in a little bit of left rudder to keep it coordinated.
mm.
But it's just that when the plane's rolling and turning one way, the nose wants to kick the opposite way.
Okay. Okay.
Now we can get into the aerodynamics of
Right.
it.
But that's the basis of at least that.
That's what's happening. Yes.
Copy. Okay, gotcha. So when you were a private, what did you? I mean, you didn't have an aviation background or anything, right? So
No,
you
sir.
you you jumped in and you're like, okay, I'm in aviation now. I'm about to learn how to fly a plane. What was it like hearing all those words and getting hit with like what feels like a fire hose?
Daunting.
Yeah.
Daunting. I mean, I used to make lists of words that people would explain to me. Be like, I have no idea what that word means. I have no idea. Maybe I'd tell them. Maybe I'd ask them to explain it a different way. Maybe I'd make a little private list and go look it up later. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of terminology that until you're kind of building your knowledge, sounds like a different language,
Yeah.
you
It
know?
kind of is when
And
I hear
it
y'all talk.
and it can be a little yeah, just daunting,
Hmm.
intimidating,
Hmm.
um where you're like, am I supposed to know what that word means on
Right.
day 1 or day 2? But you start to, learn those terminologies, especially as you get further in the program.
Right. Do you remember a moment when things kind of started to click a little bit when you're like, okay, I'm starting to grasp a little bit of what's going on here, more than just feeling like because I know how I would feel. I'm a big picture person as well. I'm
Yeah.
gonna jump in. I'm gonna see that there's a whole world here, and I want to understand all of it. Is there a moment when you're like, okay, I feel like I have my feet on the ground?
Probably when I got my private pilot cert, I felt a little bit more honed, but I definitely didn't feel super confident.
Hmm.
I think instrument, which is sort of like its whole other thing,
Hmm.
I really hit the ground running and did super well in that rating.
Hmm.
And then commercial, where you're taking VFR and IFR, and now you're going back to VFR.
Hmm.
I would say beginning of commercial, not to say I didn't struggle, but things really started connecting.
Okay.
There was all this grabbing and like we were talking about before, and okay, I see the big picture, but how are we connecting this and that and this and the other? And then by commercial, I truly felt confident in the plane.
Okay.
And kind of felt like a pilot, like
Yeah.
for real,
Yeah.
you know?
I hear people say something like that sometimes, and that's one reason I like to ask is because many people, especially in an accelerated program, talk about how overwhelming it can be at first, especially without a real aviation background. And so, like getting to a
Tremendously.
place like that can be difficult. Yeah. So would you say there was any particular part of getting through all the way through the end of commercial from the beginning of private that maybe stuck out as the most difficult part for you?
I would say the very beginning. I mean, to this day, still think private pilot is the hardest rating
Hmm.
because you just don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a little while to get to know it. And
Right.
it's all so completely foreign, or at least it was to me.
Hmm.
Um, just everything about it.
Yeah.
I don't say that to be discouraging to the audience or other people, but I would say day one, really even before you come here, you really need to be dialed in. I
Mm-hmm.
think private pilot is the most difficult rating.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get it, it's such a feeling of finally,
Yeah.
I accomplished one thing
Right.
through all the stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And I would say from there, you've kind of attained the vocabulary, the
Mm-hmm.
terminology, the basics to now where you can start building on top of that.
Is there any study tricks that you used
Oh,
to kind of like help yourself aid yourself in learning?
bookmarking, anything
Mm-hmm.
you don't know. Um, and I would say Will Garrison really showed me some of his bookmarks one time when I was
Yeah.
asking him about commercial, and that really started to click what was going on. But in your POH, in the PHAC, in the airplane flying handbook,
Right.
really start. So I like paper copies like when I'm reading,
Mm-hmm.
but electronic copies like in ForeFlight or in your iPad are really cool because you can make bookmarks. So
Mm.
anything I didn't understand that could come up in an evaluation or a stage check that I was a little weak on,
Mm-hmm.
I would bookmark it. I
Mm.
would bookmark it and I would read it. And maybe I would get a little bit of it. And then I would go back to it.
Mm.
But
You could go back and spend. You mark it, and you can go back and spend a little extra time with it, right?
you can go back, spend a little extra time for it. And sometimes in these evaluations, when you're sitting in a room with a woman or man
Mm-hmm.
who absolutely knows more than you, you're trying to memorize as much as you can. But sometimes a subject will come up that you just know you're not that strong on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's open book, not the whole thing. And, but if maybe 10% of the entire evaluation, you had to look this up and maybe that up, and then everything else you just knew right off cuff
Mm-hmm.
is perfectly okay, and you can still be satisfactory in the oral.
Okay.
So it achieves a couple purposes. One, if you don't know it or you don't remember all the details right off the bat, you know exactly where to find it, and I can find it in 2 seconds by pulling it up in my bookmark,
Mm-hmm.
speed reading it real quick, and saying, "Oh yeah, I remember," and then explaining it and still be satisfactory on that subject matter.
Right, because you're at least resourceful, and I know that I've heard that you can use it for portions of the oral and things like that.
Yes. And it kind of inadvertently makes you just learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have
Yeah.
200 bookmarks in the POH and 300 bookmarks in the PHAC, you eventually end up reading the whole book. You just
Yeah.
may not read it from chapter 1 to the end.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly, and I ask
You're
CFIs about that all the time. Do you just read it through?
yeah.
But
Yeah, like I'll give you a perfect example. Like we're doing CFI right now, and
Mhm.
they're FOIs, fundamentals of instruction.
Right.
And it's basically like getting your teaching certificate to
Mhm.
teach in Texas or any state. And everything is in a book called the Aviation Instructor Handbook.
Okay.
Well, as I'm studying for it, when you're talking about studying tips, I'm reading about it in our notes, in our study guides,
Mhm.
and then I'm cross-referencing it in the Aviation Instructor
Mhm.
Handbook, and I'm bookmarking it. And as I'm bookmarking it, I'm reading maybe a couple paragraphs or a couple pages,
Yeah.
and then I go back to it. And by the time I've gotten through all the FOIs, by the time I did my mock oral for FOI, I pretty much read the entire Aviation Instructor Handbook.
Yeah. That's what you're
Just
saying.
not in order.
Yeah.
You know what I
As
mean?
it became relevant.
Yes.
Yes, and I like that because I'm more that way too. Maybe that's the right side of my brain working when I do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's good. That's good to know because I've always wondered how are people studying for some of these things when there's so much reading material and when there's so much knowledge to be like retained.
Just breaking it down.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent
Yeah.
strategy, and I
Yeah.
didn't invent it. Will Garrison kind of put the light bulb in my head. He was just
Uh-huh.
showing me his bookmarks. I was like, how many bookmarks do you have? And this started kind of inspiring me to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell everybody else to do that. And I
Yeah.
think it's an excellent, excellent way to read the material. And look, we're human beings.
Right.
We're not computers.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is impossible to memorize everything that they're going to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to ask you some things that you didn't even know that they were going to ask you.
Right.
But if you can know 90% of it, 85% of it, 90% of it, and maybe you need to reference another 10% of it and speed read it real quick, you could still be satisfactory on the ground.
That's fantastic.
They're not looking for you to just rote memorize, spit it back to them, and not really know what it means. So I would definitely say bookmarking will sometimes save your evaluation and definitely help you learn the information, because it kind of piecemeals it, you know?
Right.
If they're just like, hey, we can ask you any question on the FAR aim, the PHAC, the aviation instructor handbook, the airplane flying handbook. You're like, that's 4 books. Where do I start? Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I just give up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's real easy to get at that point, especially at the beginning.
Right.
I mean, you're just like, oh my gosh.
There's a lot to take in.
They can ask me anything in any of these 4 books. And you know, you have study guides that kind of narrow what the importance is.
Mm-hmm.
You have ACS, which narrows, hey, they're going to ask task A, B, C, these subjects.
Right.
That's what you need to know.
Yeah.
But some of the subjects will be like weather.
Yeah,
it's
just
like, well,
generally.
Guess I need to start reading a lot about weather. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They can sometimes be big subject matters.
And
but it's absolutely achievable. You just have to. And this is kind of what I was saying the other day to some of the incoming students in a study hall that I was proctoring is organize your day. You know, the way I like to think about it is, hey, we need to value sleep. Okay. So I don't know about you. I can't function on 5 hours sleep. I need 8 hours of sleep, or I'm a very grumpy, not so nice person.
Right.
So 8 hours of sleep. I would say give thrust 8 hours, 6 days a week, take 1 day off. If you're struggling in an area, maybe you do a little bit more. And then you have 8 hours of free time, whether that's eating, working out, whatever. And I think if you break it down like that, you're going to do very well in this program. We're not asking for 20 hours. We're not asking for 24 hours. And some people do get to that point. I would strongly advise not to, because you will burn out. And you'll be walking around. It's like, why does so-and-so look like a zombie?
It's funny because you hear eat, sleep, breathe aviation, especially in an accelerated program. But I also sit here.
Balance.
Yeah, people talk about the balance a lot.
100%, man. Sleep is the most important thing. You know, if we're not sleeping well, it has to do with health and weight gain, and you need to be well rested before you get in that airplane. So I'm not saying you can't tap into that extra 8 hours, but at bare minimum, we need 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I think that's a much more achievable, balanced life.
Right. Treat it like your job. I mean, it is while you're here. So
yeah, because if you're going 16 hours a day, I mean, I think that'll work in the short term. But I think if you do that for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I think you will burn out. I think burnout is a thing.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Take a day, go play some golf, do a hobby, run around, and get away from it for a second.
Right.
And then come back to it. I promise you, I don't know. My philosophy is like, love what you do. And if you're doing it all the time, like overly doing it, I think you can sometimes lose that love, and it can be more of a inconvenience or something, you know, like a nuisance.
You begin to resent it, maybe even.
Yeah, resent doing it. And it's like, well, just schedule your day a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So I like the 8 hour. Like, I think it's very feasible. And, you know, I'm not going to say there were certain things that I struggled with where I was like, you know what, you need to put in an extra 2 on top of the 8, because I'm not the smartest guy in the room, not the most athletic in the room. And, you know, there's just certain subjects that you know that you struggle with. And, hey, let me put in a little extra work.
Right.
But I think you still need that balance, and you absolutely need sleep And
It's like time management and organization seem like some of the main principles that you're talking about that would help you in a lot of the situations. Like whether it comes down to your bookmarking, even listing out the words or managing your time throughout the day. I mean, it sounds like a type of organizational skill that's going to help you kind of succeed and learn a little bit at a reasonable pace.
Absolutely.
An accelerated pace at that.
Yeah, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And it can be daunting and definitely overwhelming. I would say, especially on day one of private,
right?
When you come in and you don't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you won't, but you really need to get dialed and make some sacrifices there.
Yeah.
So eat, breathe, live it, 1,000%, but within balance.
Gotcha.
What's it going to do if you sacrifice? It's not going to help anybody if you sacrifice sleep. You're going to burn out. You may be unpleasant to be around, gain a little weight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's not worth it.
Just reasonable chunks.
Yeah.
And I think 8 hours is extremely reasonable and doable.
Well, now that you've kind of managed your time and gotten all the way through to where you're at now working on your CFI, you're going to, if everything goes well, you'll be a CFI, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you imagine being a little excited to teach, something that maybe was something you struggled with a little bit and now you're like, I know how I would kind of help people overcome that same struggle? Is there anything that you can kind of look forward to in that way?
Landings.
Yeah?
Landings.
Yeah.
I really look forward to teaching people, specifically soft field landings, but really any of the landings.
Yeah. Is there anything about it specifically that you struggled that you got an aha moment about that you're looking forward to sharing?
Several things.
Yeah.
Everyone sucks at landings at the beginning. I mean, they just do. Aviation is like golf. I mean, there's just different degrees of suck.
Right.
But you suck at the beginning. You do. Own it. Help it. It takes some progress. It takes some work. And landings are very difficult. So I look forward to teaching those because I know they're the most challenging.
Right.
But they're also the most rewarding because, man, when you figure it out, there is no better feeling in the world than greasing a landing.
Yeah.
I mean, touching her so soft, you don't even feel the transition between air and land, just on the back mains, holding the wheelie for a little bit.
Yeah.
It is a confidence boosting feeling to just lay her down soft and know that you can do that. I mean, I would say it's addicting.
Yeah.
It's an addicting feeling. It's very cool. Not to say we do it every time. We all botch landings from time to time. But we all want to be really good at landings. I mean, it's so cool to be really good. I mean,
every time I'm on a plane, a commercial plane at that, I'm like, all right, let me see how whoever this pilot is, let me see how they lay this plane down. And sometimes it's smoother than other times, but I'm impressed with every time it's really smooth. I'm like, I didn't even really feel that.
Yeah. Oh, that's when you know they greased it.
Exactly.
They just buttered it.
So is there would you be able to share maybe 3 main standout tips for pretty much any kind of landing that comes to mind? I mean, I know that's really broad, but yeah, is there things that come to mind that stick to your mind and say, oh, this is going to help me grease this landing?
One thing specifically pops out, and we started doing this in instrument kind of accidentally with my instructor, Alonzo Giles. By the way, let me just go ahead and give a shout out to all my wonderful instructors. We have some wonderful instructors here at Thrust. They really do care about you. Alonzo Giles, Ryan Dwyer, Travis Towson, Macy Arrington, and all the evaluators who have passed or failed me. Just some wonderful, skilled, talented people that are working all the time to help you develop as a pilot. So I just need to do that shout out.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. I'm sure they'll hear it. People tune in pretty often.
I hope so.
Yeah. We've had most of those people on here, so
I hope so. In instrument, you fly early in the morning, so the weather is just better. The air is just smoother. It's a little easier to land in the morning than at 2:00 in the afternoon in the middle of the summer. And there's all these thermals, and you're just getting rocked and fighting the elements.
Yeah.
It seems very unnatural to be up there. But yeah, in instrument with Alonzo Giles, once he figured out that I could land and I wasn't going to kill him, they weren't perfect landings, but they were safe landings, and I was pretty good at it, and I passed my private pilot cert, so I knew a little bit about what I was doing. He really let me play around with coming into land at different airspeeds and different flap settings. So like, for example, normally we have 3 flaps in, 40-degree flaps, and we'll cross the numbers at like 70.
Right.
I said, well, can we maybe play around with it a little bit and try 2 flap landings I've heard about, or 1 flap landings, or 0 flap landings? So we played around with all of it. We would come in 2 flaps, maybe a little faster, 75. 1 flap, 80, 85. 0 flaps, cross the numbers, round out over the numbers at 90. And when you come in over the numbers at 90, no flaps, what you end up doing is floating in ground effect for what seems like days.
Yeah.
Okay. But what it really helped me do is feel ground effect. Because and really get smooth with those control inputs, with the yoke, when to keep it just steady and level, when to start to flare, not to start flaring like abruptly. Because when you're coming into ground effect and you're like bleeding off that airspeed, you need to bleed off the airspeed. And then how you know it's going to be soft is you're going to hear, and they say learn with all 5 senses. You're going to hear the stall horn that you're getting below the stall speed.
Yeah.
And you're going to hold the flare a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And then you've bled off enough airspeed where you can touch her down really softly and she'll stay down.
Yeah. Okay.
But when you're holding it in that ground effect, if you're not super smooth and delicate and sensitive and feel the airplane with the yoke and you're bleeding off the airspeed, let's say I pull back too quick, the plane is going to want to fly away again.
Yeah, because you have so much speed still at that point.
And you'll do what's called ballooning. So I thought what was really cool is coming in at 90, no flaps, and just chilling in ground effect for 1,500 feet, however long. I mean, you're in it for a second until you bleed it off. So you have to get to know ground effect very well and just smoothly bleed off the speed and smoothly put in that flare.
Yeah.
Because if you're too aggressive with those inputs, you're going to balloon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. I can imagine in my head.
So it's almost like you have this invisible thing called ground effect.
Yeah.
That it's like, you know, well, if we're in it for 5 seconds and we're coming across 70, like I kind of felt it.
Yeah.
But if we're in it for 15 seconds and we're coming across at 90, no flaps, I felt it for 15 seconds. Like, and I felt like that kind of inadvertently helped me have a real good feeling for what ground effect feels like.
Right. I think I can imagine that the awareness of what it really feels like allows you to kind of, like you were saying earlier, it gives you a bigger picture. You get a little more context on one of the ways to land a plane.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, I understand what that is now. Because, for example, if I'm editing a video or a photo, and I'm just moving sliders around to see what it does, you know, I want to see both ends of the spectrum. And you kind of did that when it sounds like you explored the different types of flaps you can come into landing with. And going into ground effect is one of the things you want to know, like, you want to know about. It's one side of the spectrum, it seems like.
By the end of the program, you want to be an expert at feeling ground effect, hopefully. Yeah. And I guarantee you it will help your landings because there's technique to it. And, you know, there's to the numbers, and a good pattern makes a good landing. And all those things are very, very important, and you need to stick to it and come in stable. But when you get down to the end, I would say it is 100% feel. Yeah. Feeling and being one with the airplane.
Nice.
And everyone sucks at the beginning. I was terrible. Terrible. Yeah. I mean, so all viewers out there, like, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed. Own it. Like, we all suck at the beginning. It takes time.
Right.
And a lot of it to get to where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
But that was a cool thing that I thought we did. And just trying things several different ways. You know what I mean? Again, back to that like roundabout way. It's like, and you go into this with the power off 180s. Like, there's 7, 8 tools that you have. well, let's try every single tool, maybe in a circular way thinking.
Right.
And let me see what all of them feel like. So when I'm in the moment, I have 8 tools I can use to get the plane to land where I want her to land, with grace and touch and finesse.
Yeah.
So I think just be open to all the different ways you can do something is really good, or at least it was for me.
And it gives a little room for, like you said, feeling the plane instead of being, because it's not a rigid thing.
No.
You would think that maybe there is, because it's so standardized, right, and regulated, that and it needs to be safe. So, and there is a lot of numbers, there's a lot of math, but at the end of the day, you do need to feel it. It sounds like when I hear people talk about that, and people talk about coming out of instrument and going into commercial and having to remember to feel, because instead of just looking at the instruments. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. That was the motivating factor. I had heard from other people that had been an instrument when they got to commercial. Multiple people like, man, I forgot, like exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
I got to remember how to land again. So going into it, I actually had a heart-to-heart with AJ, Alonzo Giles, great human being, great instructor. I was like, look, I have a couple goals for this rating. I kind of understand how it works now. Right. These are my goals, X, Y, Z. I don't need you to be, I think I was his first student. I was like, you don't have to be instructor of the year. Just stick with me and we'll figure this out. Let's be honest and have communication. And we had a really great relationship. And one of the things I told him was like, I really want to try to play around with different landings as much as we get, and not just focus on all the instrument work and all the button pushing and shooting this approach. And keeping those landings like working on them and not forgetting about them entirely.
Right.
So when we get to commercial, it's less of a challenge.
It's good foresight in that situation.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Because that's what I hear that from people. So what I want to do is zoom back out a little bit, actually, because like you said, when you first start, it's pretty difficult. But one thing I didn't get to ask you earlier was, did you take a discovery flight or anything like that?
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
I guess we'll zoom out a little bit more. You talked to your uncle's brother, right?
Yes.
And you're like, maybe I'll look into this a little bit. And you discover that there's a civilian route to learning how to fly planes and maybe even becoming an airline pilot. And you do a bit of research. And I'm sure that was like an extensive thing. And you land here at Thrust. Did you take a discovery flight with us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. That was sort of I would highly advise taking a discovery flight. I had researched everything. I got my medical, and I wanted to take a discovery flight because, hey, this sounds really cool. And just to kind of get back into that with aviation, I don't really care about money. Like, truly, I don't. I could live off very little money. But what I do care about, and where I've tended to be the happiest in my life, is where I'm chasing something that I'm passionate about.
Right.
Whether that's theater or flying planes. When I was looking to make a pivot in my life, I wanted to get something that I could really dig into and really be passionate about, and really looking for something that I could potentially fall in love with.
Right. And
love going to work every day.
Yeah.
That to me is the most important thing. If I make a little money or a lot of money, don't care.
Yeah.
I need to be chasing that dream. And I truly do believe that is where people are happy. Maybe not everybody, but definitely for me, I figured it out. And why I wanted to kind of make the pivot is I want something that I'm happy to get up in the morning and do and go chase and get better at. And I want to be extremely passionate about it. So I did all my research. I talked with my uncle's brother very shortly. And the last thing was, well, I've never really been in one of these small planes.
Exactly.
How am I going to react to it? Am I going to get motion sickness? Am I going to throw up?
Yeah.
Is it going to? So that was sort of like, I need to book a discovery flight.
Right.
And I'm all in and I'm ready to make this pivot. I just need to make sure that don't get in the plane and
hate
it or throw up or just feel uneasy. Which is stuff you can't overcome. But I was like, I just want to. This is the final check mark of doing it. So I did it with you guys, and it was amazing. It was really fun. We did some stalls. We did steep turns. Just confirmation. I was like, that was really cool. Right. Okay, I'm not sick at all. That was cool. Oh, I want to learn how to do some more stuff. And then just started the process to get started here pretty immediately after.
Yeah. And I always like to ask that question because a lot of people have never been in a single engine or a prop plane ever, and then say, well, I think I might want to fly, and they do a discovery flight. Yeah. And so I always like to ask that question because it's also interesting to hear when people find out that they're even interested in aviation. Yeah. Did you even think about it before talking to your uncle's brother?
I was sort of on the path of like, this looks pretty interesting. Yeah. That'd be really cool to know how to land a plane. Mm-hmm. Cool. I ride motorcycles and stuff in my spare time. I was like, oh man, land a plane. That's a big machine. Yeah. To be able to land that thing with grace. Mm-hmm. Whew, that'd be really cool. So I was sort of already on the path, and we were at a family event. Okay. And I just briefly spoke with him and kept doing the research and was started already going in that direction. And he just couldn't speak better of the quality of life, especially toward the end of your career.
And that was kind of like the trigger point to look more into it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I think his monthly schedule was something like fly to Rome, layover, fly back twice a month, 3 times a month, end of month.
That's awesome.
And hey, get to fly a cool jet. Yeah. You get to travel a little bit. That sounds like an amazing quality of life. Mm-hmm. And then he just spoke on some things. I'll never forget this. He spoke on some things. He said, when I land the plane and we put that parking brake on and we get out and we do the post check, like my day is over. I don't have to answer any calls. There's no sales involved. Right. Like my work is my work and my life is my life. Mm-hmm. And there's a very distinct separation. Because look, I've had those gigs where I work 100 hours a week and a sales or someone's constantly calling me. My phone won't stop going off. And I really liked the balance. Mm-hmm. And that was just sort of like icing on the cake. But the cake was as simply as, that would be really cool to know how to fly a plane. And then you look at all these perks, like people's salaries going up, quality of life, pilot shortage. Right. I mean, it just all clicked out. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you get this and you get benefits and you do this. Like what's not to like? Greatest part-time job ever.
That's what they say. And I've heard. I was nervous because I was talking to one of our guests, Pascal. I was like,
oh yeah, I saw that one.
I really liked that one.
He wore the hat?
Yeah, he did wear the hat. Yeah. We gave it to him right before. He's like, I'm going to wear this right now. And I was like, well, they're going to think that we gave it to you just to...
Dude, I loved his energy. It was so cool. I just started it and I was like, just glued to the screen. I was like, wow.
He was one of my favorites for sure. But I got to mention that to him. Like, hey, some people say it's the best part-time job ever. And I didn't... To me, that could sound offensive, maybe to someone, but he's like, "No, it absolutely is." That's what he said, and he's a chief pilot. So
yeah, man. I remember looking up. I was like, "What? So pilots can only fly like 1,000 hours a year or something like at the airlines?" Don't quote me on that. I think it's accurate, but so I divided that by 52 weeks, and it was like 19 point X. Again, sort of with the part-time thing. That's awesome. And it's highly regulated. So it's not necessarily ever going to change.
Yeah, it's not going to slip
unless the FAA just decides, hey, you know what? We want to start working pilots 80 hours a week, which probably is never going to happen because it'd be really unsafe. They need to be well rested. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't the cake. Yeah. But it was definitely icing on the cake. Yeah. And, the money's great, but I don't need money to be happy. I've had money and been very unhappy.
And that's what I wanted to add. I wanted to go back just one time on that before I asked you some of our final questions. But first of all, I relate to the idea of like money's never been a good enough motivator for me. Never. And some people say don't do things out of passion because it's fickle. I'm like, well, depending on who you are, right? Because
I think I would argue the exact opposite. You should always chase your passion, and the money will come.
I believe that too.
I had an old theater director used to tell me that. They said just go after what you love, and the money will come.
which is,
And I believe that.
and that's part of what I wanted to ask you, because right, some people could say that's a luxury, but one thing I want to ask is have you been in a situation where you tried to use money as a motivator, right? Where you're like, ah, man, I'm gonna do this because I need to make some money, and how did that go for you, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in. It doesn't make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I kind of accidentally ended up there.
Okay.
There's been times in my life where I've had very little money, and there's been times in my life where I've been doing very well with money.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you're doing very well with money and you're working all the time
Mm-hmm.
and you don't like what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you don't hate it, but you don't love it,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have any time, I mean, what is your quality of life?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, you're not, it is an illusion. The money is not going to make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're making the money, but you have to work 100 hours a week
Yeah.
to do it, and then you have no life,
Mm-hmm.
and you're worshiping the money. I just think as long as I have enough money to have a roof over my head and a little bit of food in my stomach, hopefully healthy, I'm good to go.
Right.
I could live in my little apartment forever.
Yeah.
I'd be perfectly okay there.
Yeah.
I don't need a lot of stuff. I just want to chase, what I'm passionate about.
Exactly. I that's one thing I like about talking to the pilots here, especially on the podcast, is because I've come to understand that most pilots, they'll say you kind of gotta love it because it's difficult, and that money tends for most people not to be enough of an inspiration to be disciplined enough to do this. You kind of gotta really want to succeed at it regardless of the money. Now, money sounds like it's a great part of it. I just like to say that though, because it's a common thread I've kind of come to notice. Pilots, they like what they do.
And this is kind of why it took a year and a half, as far as doing things for the right reasons, in my opinion, and doing things for maybe not the right reasons. I mean, the money helps, but flight school is difficult. It is very, very difficult, and it is a large investment that either you are making or somebody is making in you.
Right.
There's definitely return on your investment, and I get that. So the money is there to make the purchase, to justify the purchase. Okay, the money is there for you to make later and get your money back from the money that you invested in flight school. But I would say if you're not 100% in love with aviation, and that was another thing, like that I wanted to make sure. I was like, look, this is a big pivot. I think you need to, I don't think you can be 92% in. I don't think you can be 98% in. I don't think you can be 99% in. I think you need to be 100% in, or you may not make it through the entire program.
Right.
And you need to really be honest with yourself before you go. And if you are 100% in, it's still going to be really difficult.
Right.
You're going to fail at things. I would say it's been super rewarding, but you definitely need to be either 100% in or you don't need to be here, because I don't think you're going to make it.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. Well, let me ask you this. All being said, do you sort of have a vision for how you want your career to go? Do you have any goals? Do you want to be, live in a certain city? Is there a certain maybe airline or maybe a certain kind of plane you want to fly?
TBD. I just sent out my Envoy cadet application. If they're listening, love to hear back from you.
Yeah.
I hear it takes a little bit, but maybe they're listening. So I would like to work at Envoy, sort of in the 121 world, and maybe work there for a couple years or any of the regionals, and then maybe eventually get to a major airlines. 135, I don't know much about, sort of your more private corporate. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know enough about it to have a real strong opinion.
Yeah.
But I think the path for me is probably get on with a regional. Well, before that, finish my CFI here. Finish my CFII here. Finish my multi here. Hopefully get hired here. That would be lovely. Build up hours, become a great flight instructor, learn as much as I can possibly learn, try to pass that knowledge on to other people, get to my 1,500 hours, and then go jump on with a regional and hopefully have that set up.
Absolutely.
it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. Envoy is in DFW. I have friends and family in DFW, which is nice. But if I have to move, I have to move. I mean, that's just life.
Yeah.
So not necessarily a city or an airline, just flight instruction, regional, maybe a major one day.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I like it at the regionals.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to kind of see when we get there. Maybe I'll move up a plane. Maybe I'll like where I'm at and fly in this plane.
I like that. And you have you have the freedom to do that. It's free will. So
So I don't really have an end goal with like a plane or something like that, but I have a pretty short-term goal of CFI regional.
It makes sense. I mean, that the
And-
next couple steps. Yeah.
And then see, because life is funny. Sometimes you don't even know doors are open until you kind of get to the next step.
Right.
So I don't want to have the path so concreted out for
Yeah.
10 years, for example, that I'm closed to maybe some other possibilities or some other doors open that I didn't even know were doors.
Right.
I didn't even know that they existed because I couldn't have known until they existed until I got maybe to a regional. I'm like, well, there's all these other avenues I could go. That sounds pretty cool.
Right.
This sounds pretty cool. So I'd like to leave a lot of it open for that.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's part of the, I think, the appeal for that I could see for aviation. There is so many routes you can go. There is so many routes you can go. I mean, 135, 121 regionals, and so on. I hear people talk about jobs that I didn't know exist that I still can't even repeat because they seem so nuanced, just from starting off with their pilot license. So I look forward to learning a little bit more about that. But hey, I don't know if there's much more for me to ask from you. I mean, is there anything that you feel like you would like to mention for anyone who's listening, given all that we've talked about before we begin to wrap up?
Don't be in a rush. Really enjoy the grind of the flight school and just enjoy the struggle.
Right.
You're going to have bonds with so many people. We all learn at different speeds. God knows I'm not the fastest learner in the room.
Yeah.
Usually not the smartest person in the room.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes things just take a little bit longer. And that's okay. Like, really enjoy the grind. At the end of the day, you don't want to speed through and not be an expert at the information.
Right.
And if it takes you a little bit longer to be an expert at the information, who cares? Like, it's just a little bit of time.
That's fantastic. And on that note, for anyone who is listening or for anyone who's watching on YouTube, we have about 4 locations at this point. We just opened up in Phoenix, Arizona. In fact, the first class is in about 5 days. I think it's 5 or 6 days from the time that we're recording this. And so we have about 4 locations, 3 in Texas, 1 in Arizona. And if you guys aren't near any of those places, we have housing and things like that too. But hey, we're not here just to say come to Thrust, right? Do your research, make your decisions. And this is for anyone who's thinking about flying. We want you to fly because we see how many people love it. And so call your local flight school if you have to, and get a discovery flight and see if it's something that makes sense for you. Because believe it or not, I'm sure there's a flight school near you. And if not, call up Thrust. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. But also, if you're still listening, I'm sure it's because you've enjoyed our podcast so far, or this episode so far, which means that it would be very helpful if you like, comment, and subscribe. That's super helpful, and it helps more people find us. But otherwise, thank you, Gregory, for joining us on this episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.